dance is so communal, like we take class together. So there is something about being able to witness, to be seen, because our whole body is seen in a dance class as we're trying and learning and fumbling through and exploring and experiencing. And we're also seeing others. So we're in this vulnerable state together, which is quite unusual, and beautiful. There's many ways to experience an experience.
Friends, and welcome back to another episode of To Hum is Human, the podcast where we explore the transformative power of tuning into our intuition to express our passionate purpose. I'm your host, Donnabelle, and I'm thrilled you're here. Today's episode, Tuning into Your Body, Intuition Beyond the Mind, is about something I believe we all need to reconnect with, our bodies as intuitive guides. So often we think of intuition as a whisper in the mind or a gut feeling, but what is it also in the way we move, breathe, and inhabit space? Our bodies carry deep wisdom, and when we learn to listen to posture, sensation, energy, and rhythm, we gain access to a form of knowing that's ancient, personal, and profoundly creative. To guide us in this exploration, I'm so honored to welcome my next guest. Jennifer Polins is a dancer, choreographer, educator, curator, and the founding artistic director of the School for Contemporary Dance and Thought, or SCDT, based in Northampton, Massachusetts. Jen's work centers movement as a vehicle for imagination, joy, and transformation. She blends rigorous contemporary dance practice with somatics, improvisation, and healing arts, drawing from over 25 years of experience in the field. From her early years performing with companies like the Joffrey Ballet, Milwaukee Ballet, and the Zurich Opera House Ballet, to her groundbreaking contributions to experimental performance and education, Jen brings an embodied brilliance to everything she does. Through SCDT, Jen has created a vibrant platform for performance, community dialogue, and artistic growth for children, teens, and professional dancers alike. Her mission is to activate imagination, empower through movement, and make dance accessible as a tool for healing, expression, and presence. Welcome, Jen.
Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. I'm so happy to be here with you today.
Well, it's a joy for me to have you on the show. And I'm going to do something different for this episode. I'd like to just take a moment and start with a breath. So let's just both take a nice deep inhale. It's always nice to arrive at a place in this moment. So, Jen, when you tune into your body right now, what is it telling you?
Oh, boy. When I tune into my body right now, I'm feeling multiple sensations at the same time. I'm distracted by the state of the world. I was just reading the news. I'm really excited to be here and honored and yeah, just to be able to have a chance to talk about the work that I'm doing at every moment. I'm in my house with a bunch of teenagers or almost not teenagers sleeping upstairs. Yeah, and it's cold and raining outside today.
Those are a lot of sensations,
Yeah,
a lot of
lots of things.
sensations, lots of things, lots of things. Well, you describe movement as inquiry.
Yes.
So, what was the first question your body ever asked you, and how did you answer?
The first question, well, I have a very, very early memory of looking at myself in the mirror when I was about 2 or maybe even younger. It's one of my first memories and looking at like sort of, like a toddler would just running around busy, busy, and then stopping and seeing a mirror and seeing myself and having this realization that that was me in the mirror. And that like curiosity of who I am, maybe in this version, I don't know what I believe about life and death and all of that, has sort of propelled me. And the version continues to expand or change as I discover more about myself. And I feel extremely lucky to be able to be a dancer in this version of this life of whoever I am, because it's given me opportunities to understand what it means to be alive and be present in the moment in a way that I feel like people are sort of robbed from in our culture.
Well, it's a very go, go, go culture. And sometimes being, just being, is sort of overlooked. Now,
Yes.
many of us treat the body as a vehicle or a tool,
Yeah.
but not always as a teacher. What does it mean to listen to the body as an intuitive guide for you?
It means that there's intelligence and understanding that is integrated with our mind, with our intellect and knowing in ways that we might not like understand unless we start to inhabit, let's say, like what our actual brain feels like in the
Mm,
back, in the front, in the center, where our brain, not our mind, but our actual brain that is our mind, like where we habitually sort of have our where it sits in our skull, actually.
mhm,
Yeah,
mhm,
and where our alignment is, and how our spine, like how alive our spine is, and where our organs like engage with our posture. So there's
mm,
like just it's a never ending exploration. And a lot of that work I discovered in my early 20s through work of Bonnie Bainbridge Cohen and the body mind centering work that was located in Western Mass for many years before she moved to the West Coast. And that work has really profoundly affected me. So this like intelligence of the body mind, the mind of the body, and how it shapes our days and our lives and our ability to perceive what's happening in the
mm.
moment.
Yeah. I mean, and it's very physical, it's very visceral. It's,
Yes.
and a lot of it is, you know, I feel as if when we were moving through our day, a lot of it's up here, just in the mind, and we kind of like go along and about our day. But
Yeah.
how often do we actually tune into where is my brain situated in my skull right now? Or,
Right.
how are my organs being squished in this outfit? Things like that. Like, and what does that feel? And how does that make me sort of be
Right.
in the present
And
moment?
how like when I discover that there's a front of my spine and I can sort of listen from that place, how does that change how I listen? How do all of these discoveries change how I can listen? Has been a huge long-term like somatic question for me.
Well, and you don't I rarely think about the front of my spine.
Right.
And when you think about when you're even speaking to someone, are you
Yeah.
sort of fully engaged, looking and being with that person, keeping the spine sort of directly in front of them?
Right.
Wow, I just learned something today. You just you just helped me think about another way of like perceiving, and that's so cool.
Yeah, and these perceptions aren't like it's not like we discover them and then we can put them like these are just now tools. They're gifts, right?
Mm,
That you can have with you all the time at the supermarket. And I think another like overarching question for me, which definitely formed a CDT, was how do we take, for me, we have all these sort of beautiful secret practices in the dance studio. Dance studios are often hidden up 5 flights of stairs like far away from sort of the hustle and bustle and normalcy of culture, of our human culture. And also dance performances are often, unless you're in the know, I've heard so many people say, I like dance, but I don't understand it. I'm confused. It looks like you all know what you're doing, but I don't know what you're doing. Right.
mm,
So there's this question that I've continued to hold, maybe since my time at the Joffrey, actually, which is how do we bring this power and this intelligence and this beauty and this opportunity into our daily lives? So outside of the studio and engage these practices as we're alive, not just as we're like on the dance floor.
right, right. Well, I would love if you could take us back in time to when you really felt the pull to study dance.
Yeah, it feels like I mean, I started studying dance when I was 4, so it
Oh.
was so I have this, like, sort of, it's not a unique story of, like, mom sending daughter to ballet,
Mm,
um, and I do remember, like, being very not being able to connect right away that we were, like, pretty much like planning a performance. We were rehearsing, so I was just so in the moment. So I remember my first few performances, I was very confused when I was on the stage at like 4 and 5. I was just very young. But I do remember that. So now I teach little kids and I have this understanding of like their immediate like experience and then how we're sort of building something towards a future, is an interesting thing with the little kids. And
Mhm.
I had that experience. But I think I started to really think I wanted to be a dancer when I was about 14. So it took a long time. I was practicing ballet. I was only doing ballet and I liked it or didn't, depending on the year. And then I think I saw a VHS because I'm 55, so I'm old. So we had VHS. Somehow my mom had a VHS tape of Swan Lake and I watched that. And there was just something about both the incredible physicality, the virtuosity, and the music I was pretty obsessed with. And I just decided that I was going to be a ballet dancer.
Wow. I mean, there's no question. You're just like, "Yep." And
Yeah.
so would you attribute that moment watching that when that sort of light clicked on? You're like, "Oh, yeah, that's it. That's totally it." Well, you founded the School for Contemporary Dance and Thought in 2013.
Yeah.
And it's just known as a vibrant hub for performance, education, and public dialogue. And it's a place for emerging and established artists to deepen their craft. What was happening for and around you at that time to
I had
inspire
just
you to
Yeah, I
create?
just finished grad school. So I was a professional ballet dancer and did not go and get an undergraduate degree. I graduated from high school a half a year early and moved to New York City to dance with the Joffrey Ballet when I was 17. So I had a professional ballet career from 17 to about 24, which brought me to Europe. And in that short span of time now, but it was very intense. I realized that my interest wasn't ballet. It was just physicality and understanding our body more for art, for efficiency, like for clarity in myself. So ballet is the practice is very clear. It's very pure. It's like to do it, you have to be extremely like tuned, in a certain way.
Mhm.
And so my desire for understanding about how to be more tuned led me away from ballet and towards somatics, which is a large field of like the studying the mind of the body through a variety of different approaches and techniques and forms. I moved away from performance as my priority and more towards body work and healing and still centered around creativity, like understanding creativity, and started to teach and wound up in a grad school, found the only grad school for dance that gave life experience credits. So I have to really credit Donna Faye Birchfeld, who founded the Hollins University MFA program that has a low residency program. So there was a bunch of us that had been professional dancers in our early careers and not had our bachelor's degrees that were able to come into American Dance Festival in North Carolina and work. And um, it was from that, like, culmination of that incredible 2 years of time that it was like sort of born after.
Well, it's the name itself includes contemporary dance, but also thought.
Yeah.
So that's very curious because most people don't associate those two things necessarily in a school for dance.
Yeah, right. And so that was, I did that on purpose. And I think it's really effective. I love things that are effective very quickly, that sort
Mm-hmm.
of resonate and engage humans, right? So that I'm glad I thought of that title. It's a little bit long, the School for Contemporary Dance and Thought, but yeah, it definitely encompasses my goal, which is what I've found, especially moving away from ballet and into the somatic world, and then found improvisation, moved to Western Mass because of Bonnie Bainbridge Cohen, Nancy Stark Smith, who passed away at the beginning of the pandemic. And this area has a really rich history of contact improvisation and improvisation. And the thing that was the most interesting to me about that form of dance was first that there's like no leader, there's just two followers. So what does that mean? What does it mean to be in a relationship where there's two followers or three followers? And what does it mean to let go of verticality as like a primary hierarchy of being in a body? What does it mean to be in a fall and be in relationship to other people as we're falling through space into unknown territory? What does it mean to train our reflexes to not always be in fight or flight, but to be able to be open as we're moving into very unknown spaces together in a collaborative way? So all of that stuff was so exciting to me about moving to Western Mass. And it also felt like I met like a tribe of movement philosophers. Yeah, so really intelligent, really curious humans that were using their bodies to study what it means to have a fulfilled life. Yeah.
That must have been such a profound experience, and to be able to actually have a community that supports you in that way. I know very little about contact improvisation. So could you tell our listeners what that really means?
I mean, it's well, I had the opportunity to work closely with Steve Paxton, who also passed away last year, about a year and a half ago, for a long time. And he said that he created contact improvisation in the late 1960s. He was the instigator of contact improvisation in New York City, as part of this Judson church sort of lineage, but he created it to bring the wilderness back to dance, is what he
Mm,
said. So, yeah, which is really beautiful. Many quotes of his are so beautiful. And I feel like it's really, uh, it's an evolving practice, not even like a technique, but like an evolving practice where that is just about exploring one's relationship to gravity. It's like the duet between yourself and gravity, or, a group of people moving and gravity. Oh, I hear footsteps. I might have to move in a second. So that's sort of the basic premise of it. It has evolved. It's also contact improvisation is also a dance form that is more accessible to people that aren't necessarily trained dancers, which is a wonderful thing.
mm,
So, like in a ballet class, if you haven't had some like just development and of the vocabulary, it's hard. It's like you have to sort of start at the beginning. But with contact, you can quickly be rolling a point of contact with someone else's body. There's still a lot of skills to understand so you don't like get smushed or like there's still nuances and a lot of things to understand about the technique of it, but it's an accessible form for people that haven't had the ability to have formal dance training, which is also a beautiful thing. But for me, the most beautiful thing, also, Steve talked about like reclaiming touch. Like, so not just from, you know, being sexual or sensual even, but just sort of that touch of mother and child, that touch that we have as children, and using that as part of the territory to explore in a creative art form.
mm.
Yeah.
I mean, that's such a, that's so primal. And, when you
Yes.
think about that, and that's ancient, that's just from the beginning of human existence
Yeah.
and understanding a connection that is nonverbal,
Yes.
something that is just purely contact. And it's
Yeah.
beautiful. And I
I'm
feel like, oh,
I'm gonna move.
excellent. Okay. So we were talking about primal
Primal, you were
aspect.
saying something about primal,
Hmm.
listening
Hmm.
to my description of contact improvisation.
Okay. So I'm just going to start leading here. So SCDT, the most amazing thing about it is you're challenging conventional models of, if you would call it concert dance. I don't know if that's such a thing, or being a champion of more inclusive vision of embodied art. And, when you came to that decision to make that part of your school, what was the reception to that? Like, how did people respond in the community?
Well, when I started in 2013, Northampton was different than it is now. So it felt like there was a lot of space for SCDT to form. I started with Jennifer Nugent, who's was in the Western Mass area for a little while, who's now back in New York City and is my age and just like I just have so much respect for her as an artist, a movement artist. She's a beautiful, wonderful dancer. And we started small. We just said, what if we could create a school purely based on the things that bring us the most joy and just start to invite in artists that we knew. I had like this whole career in Europe. She had this whole career in New York City. And I had just come from my MFA program. So I had all these new connections. And what if we just bring artists in and invite them to share with the public what they're busy with in the moment, what they're most interested in, what they're really like, where their appetite is right now, and let that be the impulse for the school to start. And it just immediately took off. Like it was easy. It felt all very easy for a long time. The classes were full. We started a lot of the programs that still exist now, and it just sort of like almost exploded into being, it felt like at the moment. And it was very exciting. The youth classes were full. I had been working at the Pioneer Valley Performing Arts High School for 16 years and had left and wanted to keep working with teenagers and started Hatchery. We immediately had 14 kids, like, so it just sort of went,
Well, when you
um,
have something that's aligned with joy, like, it just feels easier. Like, I'm up for that. I'm up for joy.
yeah,
I wanna be able to well, and it's interesting because I would like to talk because when people think about dance, there's a lot of impression about perfection.
yeah.
What do you see emerge when people engage in movement practices with presence and permission?
Yeah, perfection transforms. Yeah, I mean, we could have a whole hour-long discussion on what perfection is, right? So perfectionism can be limiting because it can sort of point you in a direction and then you miss a lot of the things that happen along the way. So I think a lot of the practices and trainings that SCDT is grounded in is noticing what's happening along the way and having that like journey or those experiences be more amplified or more engaged with than perhaps in a normal dance class. That feels like a difference in the training that we're offering. Again, it becomes more accessible because everybody can participate. You don't have to be able to touch your toes with your legs straight or like have like a certain base of coordination necessarily to be able to feel what it feels like to let your body release into the floor or close your eyes and sense what's happening on the inside. We all can do that to a variety of degrees. And that is an endless game or practice. Like it is constantly changing. And every time we engage in these sort of somatically based underlying physical practices of inquiry, we're creating more of a map of sensation and understanding of ourselves. So it's a little bit more like what we do in yoga in a way. And then from that place, we take it into maybe learning a phrase, but it's coming from the inside out rather from the outside in.
Worrying about what it looks like to other people.
Right. It's not about what it looks like. And it looks beautiful. Yes. It's about what it feels like and being able to appreciate the beauty in being in a room with a bunch of other people practicing that together.
Now, you've spoken about movement as a way to process emotions, and you work with many people navigating trauma, growth, or transformation. How can movement become a portal to healing or remember?
So many ways. I mean, a lot of people have trauma with touch. And I just feel like if we can be present in a classroom and in the moment, like it's a play between like what we have to hold on to from our past and what we can let go of. Right. So that like practice of noticing what we're holding on to and what we can let go of on very small levels or very big levels feels like a healing practice related to personal trauma and like psychological turmoil, which, we all have to varying degrees. It's delicate. It's a delicate practice. And I've moved through stages where, because for me, the dance studio was always a safe space. It was a place where I was so excited to explore the boundaries, but that's not true for everybody. So I feel like the field of somatics has been really evolving and changing in the past 10 or 15 years in good ways to understand that, what safety is and how we can create safe spaces, even within the context of like a classroom environment.
Well, when you also include others within your own personal transformation, I can imagine it's a very different experience because there's a holding of and support of whatever you happen to be going through at that time. And so
Yeah, and
it's
that's a tricky thing too, to figure out how much we sort of like how much we hold our own, issues to participate in a group experience, how
Mhm.
much we make space for personal issues for as the group experience. There's, I've been doing this for a long time, so there's so many stories and just different versions of how classes unfold. I will say that like it's a communal dance is so communal, like we take class together. So there is something about being able to witness, to be seen, because that's a crazy thing about dance is like we're not, we're our whole body is seen in a dance class as we're trying and learning and fumbling through and exploring and experiencing, and we're also seeing others, so we're in this vulnerable state together, which is quite unusual, and beautiful. um
Well, and then when you think about sort of bringing all those pieces together and then actually have a performance.
yeah,
So, how does performance and pedagogy intersect
yeah,
for
that's
you?
another.
Yeah,
Yeah,
in helping others reclaim the wisdom of their bodies.
well, that's a very interesting question. We talk about it a lot in our board meetings right now. And the SCDT board is made up primarily of other artists, working artists, and then business people and lawyers and financial people. And we're talking about accessibility all the time with how our programming engages the public, because the cool thing about live performance is it's not just now the dancers in the room together, the performers, the artists in the room together. We're all in the room together. The
Mhm.
audience is sitting there or standing there or walking around or whatever the structure is of the performance, together in a space, right? Which is really different than how most of our living is going at this point virtually. And so we really look at that. We look at like how we're engaging the public. Performance can be looked at as like a consumer event. So it's like, it's if you go to a Broadway show or you go to a ballet, like there's a certain level of I'm forgetting the word right now, of like of experience that you can sort of count on. And then if you go to a very alternative experimental performance, there's a whole other sort of aesthetic and experience that the audience has. And we're interested in the full spectrum of entertainment, like entertainment being one end of the spectrum and experimental artist sort of centered work on the other. When people don't understand, like when it's more foreign, when the language is more foreign or there's less explained, some people tend to get really uncomfortable. And so part of our job, I think, as an experimental movement performance art space is to help people find ways in to a less defined performance space. And that's really interesting. And like forever, we'll be talking about it and trying to understand and explore it. It feels really important to be aware of that for SCDT and to be sort of right at the edge so that like we're including the audience and giving the audience an opportunity to discover what it means to be in a space, in a generative space where we don't necessarily, none of us know what's going to happen next, right? So that experience feels like real and potent and difficult to like navigate with this like sort of captive audience as we like prepare performances. Hatchery, is a great is a great tool because it's family friendly and there's always sort of more cohesive, like it's more like here are these things that we're developing and we'll give them to you as the audience. And we sneak in lots of experimentation. We sneak in little surprises or, like along the way. And then Hutt, which is sort of the most experimental of what SCDT does, feels like the opposite. It's like, you're welcome here and we're not going to take care of you at all. It's like, it's up to you to find your way. And this is a sacred space for the artists to have a chance to explore their world without having to like caretake the audience at all,
Mm.
which is also a very beautiful thing to have the public be able to be exposed to.
Definitely. I
Yeah.
mean, well, first of all, for our audience, so the hatchery, is that the teen part component of the school? And then Hut, if you could explain what Hut is, because I've been to several and they
Yeah.
are so invigorating. There's something that's so alive in those performances. If you could tell us what Hut is.
Yeah, so Hutt Hutt is 10 years old and it's a program that was created by Jake McGinsky, who is a sound artist and a professor at Smith College now, and myself, along with like sort of rotating poet curators as well. And it's a performance where there are three artists. There's a movement artist, uh poet or a sound like an artist that works with words in some way, so it could also be theater, and then a sound artist, and each artist gets a 20-minute set to share their work with the public, and there's little breaks in between, so the artists don't work together. It's like first it's dance and then you have a break, and then it's poetry and then you have a break, and then it's sound and then you're done. And the idea was to bring in different publics. So often music and sound artists don't go see dance or poetry, and so there's this mix in the public that is really exciting. And then we get to see these three forms juxtaposed next to each other. And there is some cohesion between the forms because we're all working improvisationally and it's all very experimental artists working together. So even though they're very, very different, there's often some through line that we can detect.
Mm.
Yeah. But we don't really introduce or welcome the public. It just the thing just starts and then it ends. And it's my favorite.
I'll have to say it's my favorite too. I mean, I love the juxtapositions because,
Yeah.
as, people attending the event, we're always sort of programmed in a particular way. It's like, "Well, why did these 3 people get put together?" Or, we
Yeah.
try to make sense of the grouping.
Yeah.
But then,
Makes
you also experience them each separately, and they're always so unexpected. Like, that's what I love about it. It's like, I've
yeah.
never seen anything like that. I've never experienced anything like that. And it's just it takes a little while to integrate because your mind is just being your whole everything is being exposed to something so new and
Yeah.
novel. Um, yeah, it's just so exciting. I love that you're doing that too. So,
Yeah. Yeah, and also Hutt is one of the few we have like a professional guest artist series. So we try to take advantage of people coming through for the five colleges, or people are always contacting us at SCDT to share their work. So we have this sort of professional guest artist series that we weave into our seasons. Hutt is the like ongoing series that is highlighting professionals in the field. We have
mm,
like a works in progress series where professionals come in, but it's works in progress, so you're not seeing finished work. Um, and we have a lot of support programming for artists at all levels, but this feels like you really get to come in and see these seasoned, dedicated experimental art forms, and there's a resonance that, as you started this talk with, it is beyond the intellect. It's a intuitive resonance that we're wanting to just let be and not like get in the way of
mm.
as much.
And there's a lot of freedom in that. There's a lot of freedom,
Yeah,
and at the moment you let go of whatever you think it's supposed to be and just
right,
allow it to happen, there's so much that can be learned and experienced in that way. So I thank
right.
you for having that. Now, I'd like to go back to you.
Yeah.
as, because I'm, what do you have any daily practices or rituals that help you stay attuned to your body's wisdom, especially in these chaotic and demanding times?
Yeah. Well, I try to be physical every day. I mean, it's really different as I'm aging and like have such an administrative load at this point. And I've said before, I feel like maybe it's like a survival skill I have created, but everything feels like a creative practice to me. So that's mostly where I'm at at this point is like noticing, especially when I have aversion, resistance, fear,
Yeah.
fatigue, when I lose hope, noticing that as a physiological experience. Yeah, and getting curious about those places as well as the times when things happen really easily and, everything works and I have an easy day or I write a grant and it just flows. Like so I think, like this idea of like when I sometimes I'll just take a walk and notice the things that I pass by. Yeah, the things that don't have much like importance so that I'm not like labeling as important and try to neutralize everything in that way so that maybe the things that I'm focused on or hyper focused on or most concerned about, if I like let that go, this idea of letting go feels like it's a theme in this conversation. What's around me? What else is happening? What else can I see? What am I missing? And that feels like a very much of a delightful and grounding practice I have as much as I can.
Yeah. Well, and just to see sort of the beauty and joy that's right in front of you, right? That's
Yeah,
just
or and just see everything a little bit like maybe it's not beauty and joy,
Mhm,
but it's
mhm,
still here, and it's
mhm.
not all consuming, it's not everything. There's many ways to experience an experience.
Most definitely. Right. So if someone, well, other than that, I mean, I feel like as you're saying this, if someone listening right now feels disconnected from their body, like you're saying, being tired or numb or afraid, what's one small invitation you would offer them today?
Jump up and down 10 times and then lie down on the floor and breathe 10 times. Notice how many times your mind drifts away and where you go. Put one hand on your heart and one hand on your belly and take a breath in and out. And yeah, just continue to know that we are in this wild collective planet all together. And every human is in a state of a dance of struggling, feeling disconnected, and feeling connected. I don't know. Like there's so much right now. I mean, we're so privileged to be able to be giving advice. So,
It's
yeah,
true. It's true.
partly, yeah, getting into a yoga class, going for a walk, looking at a flower.
Yeah, now's the time because
Hmm.
everything's in bloom, but there's seems like a sort of call to presence. A
Yeah,
call to really just, whoo, just be in the body for a moment and just
yeah.
see what it's telling us, right?
Yeah, yeah, and I think part of why we are where we are in our culture is because it's important to know what is happening
Mhm.
like really on a deep level and understand that. The more we can all do that individually and start to do that in our culture, maybe we have hope about how we can navigate all of these huge challenges right now and move forward together. We're not alone in it at all.
Well, Jennifer Pollins, thank you for joining us today. Your presence, your wisdom, and your devotion to the body as a source of knowing is a gift, not
Thank
just to
you.
dancers or artists, but to anyone longing really to come home to themselves. I mean, you remind us that movement is not just something we do, but something we are. And
And something right to do.
exactly. Wow. I just, so much to think about today from today's episode because there's something really sacred about being witnessed in motion when the
Mhm,
body says what the heart can't find words for.
mhm.
So, I really appreciate you bringing that awareness to us.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me on. I feel like we're just the tip of the iceberg of all of this conversation.
So much to unpack and uncover.
Yeah.
Thanks for being here. I hope something from today's conversation stayed with you or gave you a new way to look at things. That awareness, that pause, that's where things start to shift. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, or share it with someone who might need it. You can learn more about my work and what's coming up at sonorous.light.com, and you can follow me on Instagram at To Hum Is Human. Until next time, keep humming.